All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the setting of Clockwork Protocol. We're talking about a completely gritty, deeply layered, and honestly pretty terrifying sci-fi world. Whether you're literally gearing up to play a campaign right now, or you're just a massive fan of rich, immersive world building, we're going to break down all this vast lore together. We'll be untangling a universe that's totally defined by ancient wars, forgotten Earths, and some seriously monstrous tech. So let's get you fully prepped to step into this incredible setting.
The mission was simple and impossible. Find another world, wake up, and keep the species alive. Think about that for a second. Back in the late 20th century, humanity honestly thought the end of the world was right on their doorstep. So they hedged their bets. They sealed 250,000 people into hibernation and just fired them into the dark of space. But here is the true tragedy. The ending they were running from? It actually never arrived. Old Earth just kept right on spinning without them, but the sleepers in those colony ships, they had absolutely no idea. Cut off and drifting in the void, their desperate flight for survival is the exact spark that kicks off the entire setting of Clockwork Protocol.
So let's start with Act 1, Fleeing to Second Earth and the Long War. We really need to map out the macro history here, just to understand how humanity ended up stranded on this completely hostile new planet, and what brutal reality was waiting for them the second they woke up.
The sheer scale of this journey is just staggering. After launching back in the 20th century, these colonists spent 680 years in cryosleep. And it was a brutal crossing. Systems failed left and right, and entire families literally just became dead data in the ship's records. But a remnant did survive. They finally woke up above this massive, incredibly violent, and totally unfamiliar planet that they desperately dubbed Second Earth. And almost the second they touched down, they were hit by incomprehensible alien invaders who wanted that exact same patch of dirt. This kicked off a devastating 250-year meat grinder that became known as the Long War. Eventually, humanity won. Well, officially at least. They actually reset the calendar back to the day the supposedly last alien died. Which means, wildly enough, in the present day of this setting, the year is 1998 all over again.
Now, you might be wondering how on earth did humanity actually survive a war like that? Well, they had absolutely no hardware to match the aliens. These invaders were using living machinery and weapons threaded right through nerves and magnetism. It was wild stuff. So humanity's answer had to be even stranger. Driven by the sheer, unending trauma of this impossible new world, human consciousness literally began to adapt. This led to the awakening of scions. And look, we aren't just talking about people doing cheap mind-reading tricks here. A scion is someone whose disciplined mind can literally argue with the laws of motion. They can drag a fear right out of your skull and make it stand right there in the room with you. They essentially became humanity's ultimate reality-bending weapon.
Moving right along to Act 2, Life in the Megacities and the Clockwork Protocol. We're shifting gears from the bloody history of the past to the sprawling, strictly controlled, and quite frankly, highly deceptive megacities of this new 1998.
There's this massive dichotomy in this world. On one hand, you have the official truth, the stuff taught by the state to every single school child. It's bright, it's sanitized, the war is over, the aliens are dead, humanity triumphed. But the gritty reality of Second Earth? It's so much darker. The public only thinks it's a post-war world. The actual truth is that those alien tools were never fully shut off. They're still down there, breeding in the dark, shaping creatures that absolutely shouldn't exist right beneath the megacity streets. The war didn't actually end. It just became the concrete foundation that modern civilization was built right on top of.
So, in this supposedly post-war world, you've got humanity crowded into these massive megacities, and immediately they start fighting each other. They're battling over 4 absolute pillars of power that drive basically every conflict, corporate buyout, and military strike on Second Earth. First up, territory. Things like clean water and habitable zones are absolutely priceless. Second is alien technology. This is the cybernetic implants and black market miracles that everyone relies on, but practically nobody actually understands. Third, psionic consciousness. Those awakened minds we talked about, they are heavily exploited, heavily licensed, or just flat out hunted. And finally, information. This is largely controlled by ancient colony AIs who are still running the transit systems and banking ledgers, just blindly following their original directives to preserve humanity.
Because you have these 4 distinct sources of power, no single group really controls Second Earth. Instead, the whole world is divided up among these constantly shifting factions. You've got the calendar states, who are desperately clinging to government order, Then there are the corporate implant houses, literally selling cybernetic strength piece by piece. You've got the psionic orders acting as this weird mix of monasteries and intelligence agencies. Meanwhile, the Ark Authority is out there trying to enforce the original colony laws, and relic cartels are busy scavenging the absolute deadliest ruins. And oh, we can't forget the Earthborn Heresy, this group collecting corrupted signals, insisting that old Earth somehow survived and might actually still be out there. It is a massive, completely volatile powder keg of a society.
Okay, so here is the really crucial part. You have to understand the terrifying, completely hidden system running beneath all of those factions. Officially, the Clockwork Protocol is just a myth. Originally, it was just this innocent, machine-governed survival directive meant to keep the very first colonists alive. But over centuries of brutal war, it ended up getting fused with captured alien systems and psionic research. So today, it isn't just a machine anymore. It's an omnipresent pattern, hidden inside corporate algorithms, city infrastructure, and laws that nobody even remembers writing. Sure, it prevents total societal collapse, but it also buries dangerous discoveries and literally schedules disasters. It's like a corporate manager venting engine pressure just to meet a quarterly quota. It completely blurs the line between protecting humanity and having absolute control over it.
Just let this chilling realization sink in for a second. The protocol does not sleep. The protocol does not rule. The protocol turns. Civilization on Second Earth isn't really a society at all. It's a massive, completely uncaring machine. And despite all the chaos of the factions and those monsters lurking down in the dark, the horrifying truth is that this entire world is running exactly as it was designed to.
All right, let's move into Act 3, your role as deniable operators. Let's see how all this lore actually builds into your specific role within this massive, heavily controlled sandbox. Because hey, in a world run by untouchable powers, someone's got to do the dirty work, right?
As a player in Clockwork Protocol, you aren't just going to be dealing with corporate politicians. Outside, and yeah, sometimes even inside the city walls, you're going to face the terrifying, discarded remnants of the Long War. You'll be facing husks, which is organic life just totally twisted by alien residue. You'll stumble into frames, these abandoned cybernetic war bodies that are somehow still following dead commands. You're going to have to survive drones, autonomous machine swarms that literally can no longer tell the difference between routine maintenance and straight-up murder. And if that wasn't enough, you'll be hunted by phantoms, which are data ghosts and ideas that have somehow figured out how to wear a physical body. Nightmare fuel, right?
Which brings us perfectly to the core of what you actually do in this game. You play as deniable operators. Breach crews, relicans, protocol runners. You're hired to go out where the map is blank and the law is, well, inconvenient. You deal with all those monsters and machines we just talked about. You do the gritty, dirty work for powerful people who absolutely cannot afford to be officially involved. And above all else, you don't leave fingerprints. Now, why do you do it? It's not because you're the chosen one bound by destiny. You do it because rent is literally due tomorrow. Your cybernetic arm needs a pricey tune-up, and the megacity simply does not forgive people who stop moving.
And that brings us to the ultimate question of this whole setting. What breaks when someone finally stops the gears? Clockwork Protocol is at its heart a game about surviving inside systems that are just way too large to fight cleanly. But it's also about what happens when ordinary people are pushed too far and finally decide to stop running and start actively dismantling the machine. I really hope this explainer has given you the perfect primer to jump in, survive the system, and hey, maybe even challenge the protocol itself. Thanks so much for joining me in this deep dive into Second Earth, and I will catch you in the next explainer.